Hello and welcome to the HPL's NFL Week 3 recap. Today, Nate and I are going to be discussing every game that happened in Week 3 and what it means for the rest of the season. So let's get started. First up, on Thursday Night Football, we had the Browns take down the Jets 21-17. This is the first Browns win in 2 years after them going 0-16 last season. And Baker Mayfield looked pretty good after Tyrod Taylor goes down. This is huge for the city of Cleveland.
It is massive for the city of Cleveland. And people always say that Hugh Jackson, the Browns head coach, is the quarterback whisperer. And I guess you're starting to finally see that with Baker Mayfield. He kind of fits the system well, and he's allowed to play the way he wants. Tyrod Taylor, he's an okay quarterback, but you can tell he just was not fitting. He doesn't take the risks that Baker does, and he seems to have that it factor that all
Exactly.
franchise quarterbacks have, which is, I guess, good for Cleveland.
Yeah, he's got that edge to him. He goes out there and gets it done. So Browns get the win, and that's the first one for them in a while. Up next, we had the Eagles take down the Colts on Sunday. Score of 20-16. There wasn't too much wide receiver play from either team all day, but the running backs did have a good day in general. Jalen Mills had another rough day, and Carson Wentz looked good, but he was a little rusty overall.
Yeah, Carson Wentz, for not playing football, really for only being injured in December last year, only came back on 9 months recovery, looked pretty solid. No limitations. His movement is very accurate for his only touchdown, but I'm surprised he looked that good and polished on his first week back.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising. A lot of people thought there would be more rust than there was, but he stepped right in there. He made some, he made some great passes. One thing that I definitely forgot about was his arm strength. On some of these throws, from Nick Foles to Carson Wentz, the arm strength is definitely a lot different, and it's a lot stronger. And it was getting there. And, the accuracy was, he was a little bit behind some of the receivers, especially Zach Ertz, but they were still able to make the catch, and he still looked good. So, next up, we had an offensive shootout. Saints defeated the Falcons 43-37. This was a huge win for the Saints over their divisional opponents. Tough loss for the Falcons. But Drew Brees absolutely played amazing, and the Saints defense, in contrast, is not looking too good. They give up 37 points to a Falcons team that hasn't put too many points up on the board this season. Definitely not this many. But the defense is not great, and that could be the one, and it is the one weakness that the Saints team has that they're gonna have to improve if they want to make it far in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened to guys like Marshawn Lattimore, who last year just came in and dominated the league. I mean, last year they seemed like they were a top 10, top 15 defense, and that's all they needed for the Saints because their offense was so just high-powered. And this year, I mean, if they can't fix their defensive problems, they're not going to get all that far.
Right. So they need to address that. But that's a huge win for them, and one that they barely beat the Browns last week, and I believe they lost the week before that, if I'm not mistaken. So so that's a huge win for them. And they improved to 2-1 as the Falcons dropped to 1-2, which is going to be a pretty tight division, I think, and probably the best division in football throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
All right, the next game we had on Sunday was the Packers and the Redskins. Redskins get a little bit of an upset here, 31-17. They start the season 2-1 as the Packers lose, and Adrian Peterson played very well, 2 touchdowns and 120 yards. It's kind of a surprising start to the Redskins, as that was their first real opponent, I guess you could say, as they had lost to the Colts the week before that. But it's a good win for the Redskins, and it looks like they're going to try to compete in this NFC East.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. A lot of quarterback controversy with Clay Matthews on roughing the passer calls that definitely should not have been called. I mean, there's only so much you can do when you hit the quarterback. I mean, he tried not to land on him, but it didn't even matter. I mean, those were 2 huge penalties in the game that really can ruin it, and it did this time for the Packers.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? When you're falling, are you supposed to roll out of the way?
I don't
Dan,
know.
what, because the momentum's taking you that way. If you
Yeah.
land on a quarterback, you kind of have to, and that's like they don't want you to. But have they tried it before? Like, who's making these rules?
Yeah, if they tried being 300 pounds and not land on a quarterback, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, Redskins do get the win by 2 touchdowns. Next game, easily the biggest upset of the year so far. The Buffalo Bills go into Minnesota and they beat the Vikings 27-6.
This was, I'll be honest, I didn't see much of this game, but from what I do know, is Josh Allen, he had a pretty good game. I mean, Nathan Peterman came in to start the year, was trash like last year. Josh Allen got thrown in. I don't remember who they played last week, but he was very bland looking. And this week to take your team into Minnesota and beat them that bad, it's very impressive.
Yeah, he didn't have insane stats, but he played with poise. He played confidently. He had a crazy hurdle to pick up a first down. He played really well. And then you got to look on the other side. You got to look at the Vikings here. They lose 27-6 to what some would call before this week the worst team in football. They get absolutely blown out by them. Next week they play the Rams on Thursday Night Football, and then they head over to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. That's obviously 2 very difficult games, and if they lose both of them, they could be looking at some trouble in this year for this year.
Yeah, it's not looking good right now, but I'm sure they'll bounce back. They're a good team.
Yeah, I would agree. There's too much talent on that defense, especially for them to not bounce back. All right, and then next we had the Raiders lose to the Dolphins 28-20. Not a great start for the era of John Gruden. I guess you could say another era of John Gruden out there in Oakland as they fall to 0-3, and the Dolphins are a surprising 3-0. First off, what do you think about John Gruden and the Raiders?
I mean, there's so much about the team I don't really get. I mean, they're kind of like stuck in between like post-trade of Khalil Mack and just the new coach like system where they really haven't quite figured it out yet. You can see that on offense. Derek Carr is still not all the way there. And on defense, I mean, I remember John Gruden talking about that they're not generating enough pass rush.
Is anyone gonna ever forget that he said that when he literally traded Khalil Mack? Like, come on now. Of course, you don't have enough to pass rush. Jeez. But the Dolphins, they're 3-0, and they haven't played not great opponents yet. And they do play the Patriots next week, which we'll see how they fare against them. Well, we don't really know what the Patriots are going to be this year either. But is it crazy to say the Dolphins might be able to sneak in as a wild card team? Because right now, I think it kind of is. But what do you think about it?
I mean, the AFC is not. I mean, they're the weaker division, so I guess anything's really possible. But they're really gonna have to play consistent. The Dolphins are usually not very consistent with Ryan Tannehill, but he looks definitely improved this year. So anything's possible.
Yeah, he does look better after last year, the Jay Cutler thing, and it's different for them this year. And I mean, we looked at them in the beginning of the year in our power rankings, and we said, well, they don't really have too much weapons or anything because of everything that happened. They trade Jay Ajayi last year, but they did get some players in the offseason, and they've produced pretty well so far. So the Dolphins are 3-0 to begin 2018 season. Then we had the Broncos go and lose to the Ravens. Final score of that game was 27-14. Joe Flacco, he played pretty well this game. Any argument of benching him for Lamar Jackson is pretty much out of question right now unless he gets hurt or starts to play awful. But he played pretty well. And then the Broncos, they fall to 2-1 after their undefeated start. So both these teams, I don't think either will make the playoffs. I don't think, this is going to be an important game down the line. But Joe Flacco, he looked well. He looked pretty good, played well. And we'll see what happens for both these teams. Okay, so our next game was the Bengals and the Panthers. The Panthers came away with the victory, 31-21. Christian McCaffrey absolutely had a great game, 28 carries for 184 yards. And on the other side, Andy Dalton did struggle, throwing 4 interceptions. What do you think about this? Christian McCaffrey plays well. The Panthers have a chance in the NFC South. Maybe if Cam Newton gets going and their defense can play well. I mean, if this happens, then obviously they do have a chance. But can they get that to happen?
I think so. I mean, the division's not set in stone by any means yet. The Saints, as we said, haven't shown any signs of defense yet, and the Falcons, they're consistently good, but they're not consistently great. The Bengals, if they had AJ Green, I could see them maybe winning that game, just because I don't know like many of the Bengals' second and third wide receivers. But AJ Green's a game changer. We all know that.
Yeah.
And Joe Mixon with the run game. I mean, they're not a bad team, the Bengals. I mean, they could possibly fight for a wild card.
See, I don't agree there. I
don't
think this Bengals team has any chance.
Well,
I think they're a 5-11 team, 6-10 at best. But we'll see what happens with them. Next, we had another upset, you could say. The Giants went into Houston and they beat the Texans 27-22. Eli Manning goes 25 for 29 for 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. He played very well on Sunday, better than I thought he would play. And maybe the Giants were smart for not drafting a QB at number 2.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something that's going to be talked about all season. As if they should have taken Sam Darnold or Baker instead of Saquon Barkley, who hasn't really shown to be all that impressive yet. But to go into Houston and beat them is actually pretty impressive, because I thought Houston was going to be very good this year. But their 0-3 start is not very convincing.
Yeah, the Texans start 0-3 for a team that, you thought they could make the Super Bowl, and they definitely still can, with Deshaun Watson and that offense. They definitely can go on a run, but 0-3 start is not ideal for them. All right, and then we had probably one of the more, I don't want to say boring. If you like defense, this definitely would be the game for you. It was the Titans and the Jaguars. Titans came away with the win, 9-6. There were no touchdowns in this game. All right, that if you're going to a game and you see no touchdowns, I mean that, and just punts all day, that's got to be disappointing for a fan. And then obviously even more disappointing for the Jaguars fans as they end up losing. This is a disappointing game for Jacksonville. We don't really know what Tennessee is going to be like this year, but Jacksonville obviously going to the AFC Championship game last year and looking for that Super Bowl berth this year in a weaker AFC conference where the Patriots are not looking that great. I mean, obviously the Chiefs are, so who knows what happens with that. But they're looking to go to the Super Bowl, and this, while it's only one game, it shows that their offense could not get it done. Leonard Fournette still played well, but Blake Bortles, they just couldn't move the ball. I mean, neither could the Titans, but specifically for the Jaguars, only mustering up 2 field goals does not look good.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of talk of the Jaguars being very confident in Blake Bortles to take them to the Super Bowl, but with games like that against the Titans, which aren't a super great team, I'm not really understanding their faith in Blake Bortles, who, he's an alright quarterback, don't get me wrong, but will he lead his team to a Super Bowl? I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars, after this season, if it continues like this, they just need to cut ties with him and then maybe go. I know they spent a lot of money on that defense, but if they have some extra money, maybe go sign an established quarterback, maybe a veteran, maybe not so old, but late 20s, a guy who's been proven to get it done in big spots, because that's really what they need, in my opinion there. So next we had the 49ers go into Kansas City and lose 27-38. There's a couple storylines here, both of them having to do with the quarterbacks, and they're complete opposites, basically. So first, Patrick Mahomes. He's looking like a beast, okay? He just turned 23 a couple of days ago, and he throws another 3 touchdowns this past week. And the week before that, he threw 6. So he is looking really good. Obviously, Kansas City has some great weapons. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, to name a few. But Patrick Mahomes is looking really good.
Yeah, I saw earlier he's actually favorited to win MVP right now. He's the best odds to win MVP. That is insane. And, last year, I believe he sat out behind Alex Smith, right?
Right, right,
And
yes.
that might have been the best decision possible for him because he looks so poised in that offense. But I'm really hesitant to call the Chiefs like Super Bowl contenders just because it's Andy Reid.
And we know what happened last year.
Yeah,
They started 5-0,
yeah,
and then they get knocked out by the Titans in the first round, in the wild card round of the playoffs. So Chiefs are, they always have a good season. Well, not always, but they usually have a good season, and then they can't get it done in the playoffs. And that's the story of Andy Reid as well.
yeah,
So, and then on the other side, 49ers, disappointing news comes out yesterday. Jimmy Garoppolo is done. He's out for the season with an ACL injury. I assume it's a torn ACL. I did not see that specifically. This is tough for the 49ers as he went undefeated last year, and then obviously they've lost games this year, but you know, he is a good quarterback. And this is going to be really hard for them. Because it just ruins their whole offense, and I don't think they can bounce back from it.
yeah. It was already unfortunate when Jerick McKinnon tore his ACL in the
Yeah.
beginning of the season, but now to have your starting quarterback gone too,
Who you
that really
paid this
sucks.
offseason,
Yeah, I
paid him a
mean,
lot.
injuries are part of the game, but you hate to see them happen like this. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate for the 49ers. And then the Chiefs obviously get the win. So the next game we have the Chargers and the Rams. They played each other for the first time when they were both in LA. So we had two LA teams going up against each other for the first time in 20 some odd years or something like that. I saw something about that. But the Rams beat the Chargers 35-23. Rams offense just looks unstoppable right now, and they're now 3-0. They're ranked number one. A lot of different power rankings. They're looking really good.
Yeah, and something a lot of people talk about is that Rams defensive line. It is insane. Aaron Donald and Dominican Sue, just those two right there. I mean, how are you gonna stop that? And the pressure was definitely getting to Phillip Rivers. I was watching part of the game, but I'm surprised they were able to throw up 23 points on that Rams defense.
Yeah.
Technically at home, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, so that was surprising. Next game we had another surprising one in my mind. Seahawks beat the Cowboys 24-13, obviously in Seattle, but still a surprising game. It's been a bad season so far for the Cowboys, and Dak has not looked good. I mean, this is a good win for the Seahawks, don't get me wrong, but it's a worse loss for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I'd put the teams actually pretty on par with each other. I
Hmm.
mean, Zeke has just not looked good this year, and when Zeke's not playing good, Dak isn't playing good. It's just that
Right.
simple.
And vice versa, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
You
true.
know. So it just I don't think this season's gonna amount to much for the Cowboys, and neither for the Seahawks. But it would have been for the Cowboys. So the next game we had was not a great game. Bears Cardinals. Bears win at 16-14. Guess what? Sam Bradford, he's hurt again. What a surprise. The only thing really from here is that, this is a game that the Bears might not have won last year or the year before that.
Mm.
They were actually losing, and then Cody Parkey came out, hit a field goal to put them ahead. But it is a different Bears team. Mitchell Trubisky is now at the reins for the Bears at quarterback, and it's a new era pretty much. They look a lot better. But I don't know if they can maybe compete in the NFC North. It's looking pretty good so far, the NFC North. Obviously, Vikings lose, Packers lose, Lions do win. But it's going to be a good division throughout the year, and we'll see if they can compete.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. The new Bears era, I actually like it a lot. I like their new coach, Matt Nagy.
Hmm.
But Mitch Trubisky and Jordan Howard, I think that's definitely a setup for the future.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Especially, and Trey Burton is a pretty good offensive. He's a piece player. He can't be your star tight end, but he's definitely there when you need him. I
Yeah,
mean,
he's reliable.
yeah. Once the Bears get that established to wide receiver number one, they're definitely going to be an offense to be reckoned with.
I have a good one in mind that they decided to let go. Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
What happened there? Anyway, Sunday Night Football, 2 nights ago. It was the Patriots and the Lions. This is a little bit of a surprise. It was in Detroit. Lions win 26-10. And this begs the question here. Are the Patriots bad, or are the Lions actually good?
That is the question of all questions. And more so, it's the question, has time caught up with Tom?
Oh. Wow. Yeah, that is the question as well.
Because is he gonna play to 45 like he said?
You know, I think he will. I think he will, to be honest. I mean, the Patriots, they always bounce back, and I'm sure they will
of course.
next week and throughout this season, and they'll definitely make the playoffs. But you have to think, well, can they make the Super Bowl again? Can Brady get through another season? Can he play all 16 games and into the postseason?
Can he? Yes. Will he? Probably. He'll probably make it to the playoffs. I mean, they've made it for how many years in a row? They'll figure out a way.
Yeah, so that's the main talking point there. Can the Patriots bounce back? And they have time and time again. I'm sure they will this time. Last night, Steelers went down to Tampa Bay. They win a close game, 30-27. This game was not close. Steelers were all over the Buccaneers, but the Buccaneers and Ryan Fitzpatrick found a way to claw back into the game, and they only lose it by 3 points. Now, a loss is still a loss. However, you know, it shows that the Buccaneers, they can fight back. They fall to 2-1, but a lot was shown from them. And then also the Steelers getting their first win of the year. They go to 1-1-1. It's an important win for them. You definitely want to start 2-1. So that was a good win for them, and it's Fitzpatrick. You know, he puts up another good game last night. I'm wondering if he can sustain it.
Yeah, I mean, to start the game, he really was Fitz-tragic. 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. I mean, I started him in fantasy, and I was actually getting really nervous. And thankfully, when I woke up, I saw the Magic came back through 400 yards. So, I mean, it's crazy.
He looked good at the end, and then will Jameis Winston get his job back?
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, I think he will eventually. I don't think he'll start him this week. I think you gotta ride out.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
But we'll see what happens with that. So that is the NFL Week 3 here. It was a crazy weekend of football. All we can hope is that it's going to be like this for the rest of the year. Because if there's upsets like this and there's good games like this all year, it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, it is. I'm very excited to see how this just season turns out.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different ways that it can unfold. You know, there's a lot of teams right now that could go either way through 3 weeks. And so it's going to be interesting to see which way a lot of these teams go, who makes the playoffs, who makes the Super Bowl, who ends up winning the Super Bowl, and everything in between. So that's the end of this Sportscast, the HPL's NFL Week 3 recap. And we'll see you guys next video.